Alright, y'all, we have an interesting video for today. It is called Most Dangerous Trees You Should Never Touch. Alright, this is definitely some good information you would want to know, because you never know. The grid might go out, you have to go out in the forest and, live in the forest or whatever, you have to go, you want to live off grid, you got to know about things like this. So let's dive in here and see what they're talking about. Alright.
The peace and quiet of the forest. What a perfect place to relax. Except not all of these trees are safe for humans to touch. Believe it or not, some trees are so hazardous that even standing too close can be a death sentence. There are trees that produce deadly poisons, trees with trunks lined with thorns, and trees whose seeds explode with the force of a hand grenade. Suddenly the forest doesn't seem so...
That is so strange how we even got things like that. A tree that can kill you almost, like, not even almost kill you, like, dang. Like, that is crazy that we even have stuff like that on this planet.
So relaxing. So let me be your guide as I show you some of the world's most...
You know what it is, though? It's duality. It's good and bad, That's literally all it is. Some things are good, some things are bad. Right? Like, no offense, right? But some white people are, right? And some are not. It's a duality.
Dangerous trees and plants that you should never, ever touch.
Let's see, man.
The little apple of death. If you're ever lucky enough to find yourself relaxing on the beaches of the Caribbean, you might think the trees lining the coast could provide some well-earned shade. But if you notice that these trees are marked with a series of red bands, you need to pick up your towel and your water wings and run away from there as fast as you can. That's because this is the manchineel tree, one of the most toxic trees in the entire world. The milky white sap this tree excretes is packed full of skin irritants, which are strong enough to cause blisters on contact, and even second-degree burns. The irritants in this sap are so dangerous that if even a drop were to land in your eye, it could cause blindness. And that's just the beginning. The sap can dilute into rainwater, making it dangerous to even stand underneath as the solution drips off wet leaves. And if this tainted rainwater evaporates as you breathe in, it's still strong enough to irritate and burn your lungs. The effects of this sap are so lethal,
that's crazy.
Locals have taken to marking any manchineel trunks with red bands, and even adding warning signs to clearly show people need to stay well away. But that's not the only thing that makes the manchineel horrifyingly dangerous. It also produces a small green fruit, which is known locally as the beach apple. A misleadingly...
What? How does it promote a apple that the tree is poison? What happened? Like, what caused this to happen, y'all? That's what I'm thinking right now. Like, okay, it used to give out fruit, and now it's poison. Like, or is it always been poison and it's giving out fruit? Apples. That is interesting. I don't know. That's crazy though.
Sweet name for a potentially fatal fruit. Take it from Nicola, a British tourist who took a bite out of the green tangerine-sized fruit that looks just like a small apple while on holiday. Though at first it was pleasantly sweet, moments later she was gripped by a burning pain in her throat. It was so intense it left her completely unable to swallow, and the excruciating tearing pain in her throat lasted for several hours. The only relief she could find was through chugging down gallons of cold pina coladas. That's certainly one way to make it a memorable vacation. But Nicola was lucky. Others who have accidentally ingested the fruit have suffered from inflamed and blistered mouths, as well as severe digestive problems.
Wow.
So, If you see a strange fruit on a Caribbean beach that
Oh
doesn't have a
my
cocktail umbrella
goodness.
poking out of it, avoid it at all costs. Ominous oranges.
What is that place? Caribbean? How many of y'all ever been there? See, like, this is definitely some good stuff to know. If you want to travel the world and go places, you gotta know stuff about this type of stuff, man. For real. That is crazy, though.
If you walked by this tree, you'd be forgiven for thinking that its big, bulbous fruits were some sort of oranges. But if you peeled one apart, you'd learn very quickly that these ain't your average oranges.
Dang.
If you went even
Dang.
further and decided
Yeah.
to chow down on this fruit, well, there's a chance you wouldn't live to tell others about it. That's because this is the Strychnos nux vomica, more commonly known as the strychnine tree. Strychnine is a potent poison, which is found throughout the entire tree, though most notably in the seeds. If ingested in large amounts, strychnine can cause involuntary skeletal muscle contractions, which you have no control over. The muscles can convulse, tightening and flexing uncontrollably to the point where a person's head, neck, and spinal column seize into a bridging arch position.
What?
Ouch, that's one seriously extreme yoga pose. Though not a pose you should be practicing, because the continual strain of this position ultimately results in asphyxiation. And I thought downward dog was hard. The tree itself is native to India and Southeast Asia, and amazingly, it's credited as limiting the spread of the bubonic plague to these regions. And that's because its fruits decimated
crazy.
the European rat populations that carried the deadly virus to these lands. Today, the strychnine tree is still predominantly used as a source of rat poison. So, if you ask me, it's best to leave this one to the rats. With any luck, the only time you'll encounter any of these terrifying trees will be in this video. Speaking of which, if you've learned something new so far, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. All done? Great. Now what have we got next? Brutal bunyas. Australia. The country where just about everything can kill you. If you're brave enough to go for a walkabout in the woods and are really careful, you may think you're safe from anything dangerous like snakes and spiders. But be sure to look up, because even the trees are dangerous down under. Typically growing to heights of more than 100 feet with rigid and sharp leaves. Bunya pines are ancient trees that have stuck around since the Jurassic era, some 199 million years ago.
Okay. One thing I do not believe is dinosaurs exist. I don't know about the dinosaurs thing. I really don't know about that one, man. I feel like they lie.
Protective gear must be worn when handling the leaves or branches, but the leaves are the least of your problems.
Okay.
Between the months of December and March, these trees shed massive pine cones weighing up to 40 pounds each. That's a seed the weight of an average 5-year-old, which can fall from the height of a 9-story building. And I wouldn't want to be stood underneath that tree when it happened, like Sean Mace was. Back in 2015, Sean was resting under a bunya pine when, out of nowhere, a 16-pound pine cone fell right on his head. That might sound sort of funny, but Sean required 2 major surgeries, and the impact left him with likely irreversible brain damage. Not exactly a laughing matter. As frightening as that is, bunya pine cones aren't entirely terrible. The seeds within are edible and make up a stable part of the diet of many indigenous Australians. Many trees still bore the carved hand and footholds used by the Aboriginal peoples to harvest the bunya pine cones, as they weren't foolish enough to wait for them to drop on their heads. So if you ever decide to visit Australia, be sure to pack all the essentials: swimming shorts, sunblock, and a hard hat.
How many of y'all ever been to Australia and would like to go if you haven't?
Spikes and grenades. Just from looking at this terrifying tree, I probably don't have to tell you to keep your hands off it unless you're
Yep.
looking to add a few huge new holes to your palms.
I'm good.
This is the sandbox tree, a natural nightmare native of the tropical regions of the US and South America. Growing up to 100 feet tall, the sandbox tree also goes by the nickname of the monkey no-climb tree. That's pretty obviously because
Right.
its bark is covered in sharp, dagger-like spines that grow to more than an inch long. Yeah, I wouldn't want to climb it either. To make it even worse, the tree secretes a sap that is a potent irritant, strong enough to blind anyone unlucky enough to get it in their eyes.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
This tree is not playing around. But why is it so nightmarish? Well, it's all to protect its precious fruit, which look like tiny, adorable pumpkins. However, once the soft flesh withers away, it leaves behind hardened, dried seed capsules that are the botanical equivalent of hand grenades. When fully mature, the seeds drop to the
What?
ground and explode, flinging
That's
their hard,
crazy.
flattened seed capsule.
That is actually insane how we got like stuff like this, you know? Mm-mm-mm. Make me wonder, like, is this where they got the idea of making a grenade? You know? And then like the original people used this to attack their, people that was after them. It's interesting. This crazy. That is
At
crazy.
speeds of up to 150 miles per hour. This disperses the seed capsules far away from the parent tree to provide
So
them
basically, it's a bomb tree. A tree that produced bombs.
with ample resources to germinate and
crazy.
grow. Although it has been reported that the seed explosions sound as loud as a gunshot. And with its seedy shrapnel firing that fast, I'd make sure not to be in the line of fire if I were you. Grievous Gimpy. Now, it's not just trees that make up our world's frightening flora. Back in Australia, a deceptively dainty dark green plant with heart-shaped leaves and a fuzzy white fur looks like it would make the perfect addition to a Valentine's bouquet. But it's much more likely to leave you forever alone. You see, this
What?
is the Gimpy plant, also commonly known as the stinging tree. Those delicate white hairs are in fact needles laced with moroidin, a powerful neurotoxin that causes excruciating pain.
Oh
But the
man.
worst part is that it doesn't degrade over time, leaving victims suffering for days, months, or even years if the
Oh,
Gimpy
man.
needles are not removed from the skin.
Wow.
The burning pain is so bad, local legends have described horses stung by this plant as being driven mad and running off cliffs to end their pain. Entomologist
Wow.
and ecologist Marina Hurley, while conducting a study on the plant, described the sting as the worst kind of pain you can imagine, like being burnt with hot acid and electrocuted at the same time.
Wow.
Others have described this sting as equivalent to 30 wasp stings, a picnic from hell. Even standing near the Gimpy plant is a hazard, because the fine needles can break off in the breeze, and if you breathe them in, they'll wreak havoc on your respiratory system. Alright, I'm amending that Australian essentials list from before. Swimming shorts, sunblock, hard hat, and a gas mask. Have I missed anything?
We're
Let me
gonna
know down
definitely
in
the
the
gas
comments.
mask.
The cold
Thanks for
killer
providing
tree.
that one.
While the Caribbean's manchineel tree holds the official title of the most dangerous tree in the world, it isn't the
This got me
Caribbean's
spooked
only
out, I ain't gonna
unsafe
lie.
shrub. Called the piscina tree, the thick canopies of these trees encourage birds to nest inside their branches. Now, like many plants, the piscina relies on animals to carry its seeds far away from the parent plants, so they don't end up directly competing for resources. As such, the piscina releases sticky, gooey seeds that adhere themselves to the bird's feathers. Pretty smart. But somewhere in the piscina's plan, something went really, really wrong. The pods are so sticky that the birds become completely incapacitated, with some lugging around more than 200 seeds. Left flightless, unable to move or even free themselves, the poor birds eventually succumb to starvation, fatigue, or become prey to opportunistic predators. The most worrying part, though, is that botanists have no idea why the tree does this. Scientists conducted several studies and concluded that the tree obtains absolutely no benefit from its bounty of dead birds. Perhaps it is a mechanism the tree evolved to combat predators that have now gone extinct? Or it's an evolutionary genetic quirk that has gone too far. Well, it's either that or this tree just really, really hates birds. Killer coconuts.
That's not even funny. What's up?
There's an old urban legend that coconuts kill more than 150 people per year by falling out of trees at a great height and cracking them on the head. Fortunately, though, this is totally false. It's a fabricated statistic popularized by shark activists to demonstrate the relatively low number of shark attack-related fatalities, with 10 casualties on average caused by sharks each year. However, that doesn't mean coconuts are shy. But in all seriousness, if a coconut weighing 4 pounds fell 80 feet on a person's head, the impact velocity would be 50 miles per hour. The force of that would be roughly equivalent to the weight of 1 ton. And coconuts dropped from lower heights have resulted in ER trauma admissions, with injuries caused to the back, shoulders, and head.
Wow.
There have even been fatalities caused by coconuts. In 1973, a young child in Hawaii was fatally injured while playing in a park after a coconut in a nearby tree fell on them. And in 2002, a fatal incident involving a falling coconut on a beach in northern Queensland, Australia, led to authorities removing coconut trees from all their beaches. So be careful where you decide to take your nap on a holiday, or this falling fruit might be the last thing you ever see.
Dang.
Sinister shipworms. Alright, I'm about to show you something that's gross. So gross, I can hardly look at it myself. Still here?
Alright.
Well,
Let's see.
you have been warned.
All right.
Now, let me introduce you to a
that is
frightening
gross.
sight
That is
that could
nasty.
suddenly slide out of any tree you might find near seawater. Ugh. These are shipworms.
Yep.
Despite their name, they're technically
Nasty.
a member of the mollusk family, a group of saltwater clams with long, soft white
What are you
bodies.
like aliens?
They are infamous for burrowing into structures such as piers, docks, and ships. Anywhere where wood meets the sea, shipworms will be there. They settle onto wooden structures as larvae, where they begin to excavate the wood, burrowing themselves inside as they grow into adulthood, spending their whole lives munching great long tracks through the wooden beams. The tunneling of shipworms can cause dangerous structural weaknesses and result in shipwrecks and pier collapses, alongside a nasty shower of slimy worms. Ugh, gross. Nevertheless, in the Philippines, shipworms are known locally as tamalak and are considered a delicious delicacy.
I'm good.
Here, they are hunted and extracted from the trees growing or rotting in the mangroves close to the coast. But depending on how infested the tree is, its structural integrity could see it collapse at any moment, putting the potential hunters in grave danger. I think I'll be safe though, seeing as how I just lost my appetite forever. Trippy tree.
Trippy tree,
At a
okay.
glance, the pretty flowers dangling from this tree really steal the show. The
Yeah.
pristine petals have earned the name angel's trumpets, but after you learn a little bit more about them, you realize they should be called devil's trumpets. The official name of this plant is Brugmansia, and originally it was native to the wilds of South America, though it can be now found a lot closer to home, perhaps even in your own garden. Brugmansia is considered by many as an ornamental plant, perfect to have in a pot on the patio. But don't be fooled. It's also one of the most toxic trees you can grow. To both humans and animals, the toxins of this plant can be fatal. In their native climates, Brugmansia can grow upwards of 20 feet tall. the entire tree covered in foot-long trumpet-shaped flowers. However, be warned, because contact with this plant can trigger anticholinergic syndrome in
What
the
is
central
that?
nervous system, leaving sufferers completely paralyzed and confused. It's so dangerous that ecologists routinely have to wear hazmat suits while working with it. But that's not all. The toxin can also trigger auditory and visual hallucinations. According to studies, the hallucinations aren't fun, they're terrifying. Meaning this is a tree that can probably make your worst nightmares appear before your very eyes. Back in 2006, a young man was admitted to the hospital after drinking a cup of Red Angel's trumpet tea. He seemed to be searching for a high, but instead, in the throes of a vivid hallucination, he cut off his tongue and his, trumpet. Now that's what you call a bad trip. Imposter problems. If you ever go on a walk through an orchard in Brazil,
This is
you
crazy.
may
That
come
was
across
crazy.
a tree smothered in black boils.
Wow.
But before you hail down the locals and warn them of an oncoming plague, take a closer look. They're actually berries. Delicious edible berries of the jabuticaba tree, to be precise.
Alright.
Native to 3 states of Brazil and in season for just a few weeks of the year, these berries grow in a bizarre fashion. They smother the tree trunk like a clutch of alien eggs, rather than the usual way of appearing amongst the leaves. Due to the extremely short shelf life of these berries, beginning to ferment 3 to 4 days after being picked, they're often turned into jam, jelly, juice, or liquor.
Good.
However, when it
That's
comes
what's
to
up.
figuring out which black berries are safe to eat, you best leave that to the Brazilians. With an untrained eye, many other luscious-looking blackberries are in fact poisonous.
Wow.
Oakweed, a common sight in South America, bears inviting blackberries on bright purple stems. But unlike the delicious jabuticaba berries, these cause violent cramping, difficulty breathing, and eventual asphyxiation. But it's far from the only dangerous blackberry out there. Atropa
It
bella
really sucks knowing like we have stuff like this, but we do, you know, still the duality and everything, you know. It's how it is. It's good and bad, you know.
belladonna, otherwise
Right and
known
wrong.
as deadly nightshade,
That's what it
is
is.
one of the most toxic plants in the world, and also sports berries that are similar in shape and size to the jabuticaba. But don't be fooled by their similar appearance, because eating even a single nightshade berry can cause
good,
hallucinations, psychosis, and convulsions. Eating just 2 disrupts involuntary systems throughout your body, like sweating, breathing, and your heart rate, which can prove fatal.
Goodness.
The best rule to follow is always avoid wild black berries, unless you find them growing directly from a tree trunk in Brazil. Hidden honey locust. The leaves of the honey locust tree, commonly found across the US, turn an incredible shade of orange in the fall. But be warned, because lurking underneath those leaves are sharp, spear-like thorns that are about 4 inches long, although some can reach as long as 11 inches.
Wow.
Flick knives with blades longer than 2.5 inches are generally illegal to carry in most US states, so it's fair to say that this is a seriously gangster tree. The flowers possess a strong,
Got it
sweet
against a
scent,
tree?
but leaning in too
What?
close to get a sniff could bring you face to face with those thorns. They're so big and nasty that they've been known to puncture the tires of field tractors. And some horrifying accounts have even described these thorns piercing right through people's skin to fracture the bone. Ugh.
Oh.
The thorns are thought to have evolved to protect the tree from giant
Oh, my
animals
goodness.
that used to roam the earth during the world's last ice age, like woolly mammoths. Those animals have since gone extinct, but the honey locust tree has hung on to its weaponry. On the other hand, the honey locust's close cousin, the black locust tree, takes its thorny weaponry a step further. The black locust tree has fewer and shorter spikes, but it laces them with the poisonous phytotoxin called robin. which can cause muscle weakness and kidney failure. So if you see a tree with thorny spikes, be warned and steer clear, as they evolved to fight off woolly mammoths, so they won't find humans much of a challenge. Weird whistling. The savannas of equatorial East Africa are great rolling plains punctuated here and there by vegetation. It's a relatively peaceful, quiet landscape, with the exception of an odd, eerie whistling, one that's not coming from any sort of bird. This is the whistling thorn, an acacia tree that can grow up to 18 feet tall. But that's not all it grows. On either side of a swollen vine, the tree boasts tens of pairs of huge spikes, which each reach 3 inches long. But the thorns are the least of your concerns, as the swollen bases of these thorns are naturally hollow. This makes them the perfect spot for a whole variety of insects to move in. Ugh. Ants in particular reside inside the tree in a symbiotic relationship, using the hollows of the swollen vines to build their nests and acting as a defense for the tree. The fire ants protect the tree by swarming out of their nests and attacking any intruders brave enough to try and mess with the tree. An attack from a fire ant typically causes instant, intense pain. The pain quickly gives way to itching and intense skin irritation that lasts anywhere from a few hours to a few days. And worker fire ants are determined soldiers, so they won't stop until the job's done. Ouch. Every few years, the ant colonies relocate their base to another swollen vine, leaving behind a hollow thorn. When the wind blows, it whistles through the hollows in the old abandoned thorny vines, leaving the tree to whistle threateningly in the wind. So if you ever hear an ominous whistling floating over the African savannas, turn on your heel and run the other way. Have you ever seen any of these dangerous trees in person? And which of these was your least favorite? Let me know down.
No, I haven't. Least favorite would have to be the extra sharp tree. Did y'all see that one? That was crazy. I'm not gonna lie, but this was definitely a good informative video right here, I would say. If you did enjoy this, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, okay? And we'll keep these videos coming every day. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next upload. Peace.